Today's Albion Online video is all about how to make the beef stew, but in real life. Today is April 1st, and here are the ingredients. You're going to be using beef stew meat, which is chuck, but chopped up into cubes. And then you have a mixed vegetable bag. I'm using a frozen bag with carrots, green beans, corn, and peas. Stewed tomatoes from a can. A giant thing of chicken broth, but you don't need the chicken broth. You can use water. We have beef stew seasoning packet mix, and then russet potatoes, and a white onion, not a yellow or a purple one, a white onion. And finally, we are going to use it in a crock pot. Step number 1 is put the beef in the crock pot. Just add enough to cover the bottom, like 1.5 to 2 pounds. Add the stew mix. Ingredients if you care. If you want your stew to be 8.1 enchanted, you can sear the meat first, but I'm lazy. Next, skin and chop the potatoes to the same size as the beef. In April is the Black Panther Mount month, so make sure that you do your challenge rewards and get it, especially on Europe, because that mount will be best in slot for a while. Now, you only need 2 potatoes, but I always buy 3 because one of them will almost always be green or bad or filled with bad spots. I live in the ghetto and we don't get the freshest produce here. So as you can see, this third potato is green. I'm tossing it out. Don't eat this. If anime has taught me anything from Tanya the Evil, don't eat the poisoned potatoes. Then add them on top of the beef and then do the same thing to the onion. Once the onions are chopped, you're going to flake them in one by one into the crock pot. This is what your crock pot should look like. It's just a layer of meat, and then the powder, and then the potatoes, and then the onions. And if you're wondering, how do you chop onions without crying? And it's simple. Just push your lips really hard together and breathe out of your nose. You don't need to do any stupid tricks like on the cooking shows. Just don't breathe out of your mouth, and you'll be fine. You're going to add the stewed tomato evenly, including the juice, on the top of the food. And you're going to use a manual can opener, not an automatic one. We're men here. Spread it out evenly and make sure that there's no gross or blackened tomatoes, because sometimes these cans have a gross tomato. Add your mixed vegetables. This one is 32 ounces. You could do 24 or 12. It doesn't really matter. Just grab whatever you feel like. And if you don't like carrots or you don't like green beans or you don't like corn, then buy them individually. Pouring it in, crunch it down as much as possible. I'm going to use all of the broth, and you don't even need broth. You could use water if you want to. Just fill any kind of liquid you want. It could be beef broth or turkey broth or vegetable broth, whatever broth or water you want. Just something reasonable, okay? And fill it nearly to the top of the crock pot. Now, I didn't have enough broth to fill it up this far, so I just added some water. Once this is done, give it a good stir. And then you're going to set the temperature on low, and I like to cook it for 16 to 24 hours so those potatoes are very tender and they soak up all of the flavors of everything in here. You could eat it in 8 hours, but the meat's going to be tough and the potatoes aren't going to be all the way done. You've stirred it. It should look something like this. You're good to go. Put the lid on. Again, set it to low, and then let it set for 16 hours. The required dishes, and while you stir it, you can pull out all the icky, nasty pieces. Like these 2 carrots had black stuff on the side, so I yoinked those out, and you're all set. If you want to enchant your beef stew, you can add a couple bay leaves at this point. You can add mirin sauce, which is like a fish sauce, just a little bit, not too much. For point 3, well, I'll let you decide on that one in the comments. Bonus, in real life Gigantify potion ingredients. Real life tier 7 resistance potion. Tier 8 tornado in a bottle. Potion and sticky potion. It's in a bag because ants will climb in. Don't ask. Cleansing potion or disinfecting. I don't know what it's called. YouTube 100,000 subscriber plaque. A hellfire potion because it's spicy. Yes, this is spicy. Shut up. I know a lot of you are like, it's not spicy. Yes, this burns my mouth. Energy potion, and does anyone play Palia anymore? Now this is what it will look like around 23 hours. It's totally edible around 16-18 hour mark, but the more it cooks, the tender the potatoes get. By the way, I didn't mention, but you should stir this randomly throughout the day and night and when you wake up, before you go to bed, that kind of stuff. You don't have to, but stirring it just lets it cook more evenly and stuff. And this is what it looks like when finally put into a bowl. That is your, is it 15% damage increased or 12.5? I forget the amount that a beef stew gives you in the game, but here it is. The potatoes will be nice and brown and soaked in all of the broth and juices. The onions will be translucent and clear. Everything will be very soft and edible. Now, because we cooked it on low, the meat will not be tough and hard to chew. And the meat will still have the fat on it, depending on how thick the fat is when you cut it. But let's talk about cost. The crock pot you can get on sale for like 20 bucks probably. Beef is about 2 pounds. I only used 1.5 pounds in the video because I was late to the store and that's all they had left. This costs about $10, so $5 a pound. And if you want to save even more money, you can just buy chuck. That would be chuck roast or chuck shoulder, whatever it's called in your part of the world. And $5 a pound is about what you should pay. Don't overpay for this meat. It's a cheap cut. The potatoes, 3 potatoes cost me $2. That can of stewed tomatoes cost me $2. The seasoning packet was $2. Now that one's overpriced. If you can get like a store brand, you can get it for like 50 cents. But the place that I shop at, they don't have the store brand because, well, the ghetto can't afford it. So they just use all the expensive crap. The onion was $1. The broth was $2. And the packet of veggie seasoning, or not veggie seasoning, the vegetables, the carrots, peas, etc. was also just $2, and that was 32 ounces. Item measurements, because this video needs to be 8 minutes long, was at 2 pounds of stew meat. We have, try to get around 2 pounds of potatoes. I don't think the potatoes I had were 2 pounds, but it's whatever. It's still edible. If you don't get the exact measurements, it's okay. Don't beat yourself up. Don't get upset. All right? And then, again, the frozen veggies were 32 ounces. The broth was 48 ounces, but I had to add water because it wasn't enough. Sometimes it's too much, sometimes it's not enough. It really depends on your ingredients and how much room it's taking up in your slow cooker. The onion was maybe a pound. You don't even need to use a whole onion if you don't like onions, but it really does add flavor. I don't know how big of a family this can feed because, well, not all of us get families, but I will say that this is a very large bowl and a very large spoon to go with it. So this is like 3 bowls worth of stuff inside this bowl. And in the game, you craft 10 bowls. So I'm just going to say that this recipe will make 10 bowls of beef stew. Said if you wanted to make this even better, like to impress a girl or something, or a family, well, you can sear the meat, which will seal in more of the flavor of the meat, though it will make it chewier, won't be as tender and easy to eat. And you can also add mirin sauce or fish sauce, depending on where you're from. You can add bay leaves, just a few. They don't really add much. Only super tasters and really fancy people with fancy palates will notice the bay leaf versus, your casual whatever eaters. Now, this is a great thing to make before the EU official launch. You just make it a day before, and then you've got food for 2 to 3 days, so you can binge the game. And this will keep you nutritionally, gamer perfect or whatever. Just, pair it with some caffeinated drinks like Mountain Dew or something, and you're all set to game for 3 to 4 days straight on a binge. Just a reminder, today is April 1st, so with that said, leave a like, make sure you don't have to subscribe, but on the right side of your screen right now, that's where the bowl is. Ooh, there's a video you should absolutely click, and if you don't click it, then if you own a pet, they will vomit on the floor.